name or anything like that. Welcome, thank you for coming, and I'm going to continue along the discussion of improving your vocabulary and how you go about doing that, because as you know, if you've been following, vocabulary is the single best predictor of school success. So you're coming here to get you some more words, hopefully. So this is a strategy that I love. It's called visual mnemonics, and it's a type of mnemonic device. And for those of you who don't know, a mnemonic device is just a memorization technique. And it's where you associate an image with a character or an object whose name sounds like the word that has to be memorized. So, you know, when you learned the Great Lakes in elementary school, you memorized HOMES as an acronym, and that stood for Lake Huron, Ontario, etc., etc. And, you know, we did Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, and to remember the order of the, that's for algebra, to remember the order for the planets. We did Who Knows the One for the Planets. It changes all the time, and now one of the planets isn't even a planet anymore, so it's my very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. These are all mnemonic devices. So you take the first letter of each of those acronyms and you would piece it together to figure out the meaning, which helped you remember the order of things. And so if you want to remember vocabulary words, you have to really get a picture in your mind. And a lot of really good teachers out there make you do a VIS, which is a vocabulary improvement strategy, woohoo. And what they ask you to do, and thumbs up if you've had a teacher ask you to picture a clue in your mind. Picture the picture that you think of when you think of that word, right? This is not new. This isn't rocket science, right? But what I like is for you to transfer that meaning personally using a more powerful picture and a more powerful memory technique. So if you hear me say visual mnemonic, I want you to picture a picture, like a real picture in your mind. Maybe you can't draw it as well as you can picture it, but I like going and looking for images online that I can pair with a vocabulary word if a student's having trouble. And the easiest way to do that is like in Google Images or in all the different types of social media sharing places. You put in the word serene and you'll get tens of thousands of pictures that have that word attached to it. And so when I put in serene in a popular site, I got this picture of this house and this tree house. And if I were staying in there, that would be completely serene. A lot of the other pictures that come up when I put in serene were waterfalls and rainbows and really majestic looking sunsets. And the idea is that if you're really going to start working with words and looking at words differently, you really need to go and you know, use your brain and use your creativity and find a picture clue that makes you think of a word. So this symbol over here is actually a visual symbol for a musical note, and only a really musical person would know that, but it's the visual representation. I don't remember what note it is, but and then so you see the word serene has a feeling, and teachers call it a connotation. It has a meaning to it that gives it a feeling. If I say the word perverse, well, you're doing the flip, and I don't want you to go to Google and put in that word at all. Don't tell anyone. Some teacher online said I should go put the word perverse in because you'll get me in trouble. I did not say that. What I said was, when I think of the word perverse, Dr. Evil comes to mind. And I also think of the 7 deadly sins. Perverse is a lot of times just completely the opposite of what's right is perverse. It's evil, right? And if you really want to improve your memorization techniques, because for some people memorizing words is really easy and they can get it in like 3 or 4 tries. But for the average person, like I said before, it's about 50 tries. And before you make a word really your own and you can use it in your vocabulary, you can write with it without making an error. To make it your own, you have to really play with the words and work with the words. And this website, if you go to it, takes you to just a bunch of help about mnemonic devices and techniques. It goes through acronyms and sentence acrostics and rhymes and songs, loci, you know, I would do that, wouldn't I? Chunking, practice makes perfect. So, you know, good site, good whoever did this, yay you. Who is it? Can we give them credit? Intelligent Inc. Yay you. Okay, so we're going to look at some vocabulary words today from a story called The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. And how many of you have read Poe before? Think about it, Edgar Allan Poe. We've got a million stories at every level. I think they even start in middle school with Poe stories. Am I right? Yeah. So this story is definitely a perverse story, and I don't read the whole thing to you today, but I will go through the context clues that we did in the previous presentation and just talking you through my experiences as I read the story to you hopefully will give you the idea that how one thinks when they read determines how well one reads. And by me modeling how I read and what I think in my brain when I'm reading, I then in turn help you learn to think in that same way. At least that's the idea and that's my hope. So the first word that we might come across, not might, we do. These are also in the order that they come in the story. Isn't that nice of me? Because I'll refer back to this page if we need to. But solicit's one of the first words that comes up that you may not know. And a good teacher, before you go into any texts, would fill you up with information about the words that are in the text, and that's what I'm doing. So you solicit, it's to seek for something by earnest or respectful request. It's a formal thing. You might have heard of the word solicitors, like when telemarketers call you on the phone, they're soliciting you, they want to buy something from you, and that's Homer. You guys know who Homer is, right? The visual clue when I think of the word solicitor is I think of people who call me on the phone and annoy me. So that's my visual mnemonic for solicit. Yours is completely different, and you'd have to actually draw it out and work with it. But if you really want to remember a word, it's helpful to go find that picture clue. So when he speaks of the word mad, it's not mad like the elementary school word. It's mentally disturbed, meaning literally insane. And so these are just the words that if you want to read the story to yourself one day, these are all the words that I think the average student would struggle with. And then the printed copy of the story is at this website. It's the website that I picked that I like the best. And it even has the reason being is it has the whole story, but it has activities for teachers too. Not great ones, but, well, I shouldn't say that, should I? Sorry, Teacher Vision. They weren't very complicated for my grade level is what I meant. They were great for like younger kids. Sorry. Don't get me laughing, my cough will start. Okay, or you could have some guy read the story to you, and I can tell you that that's a good way for you to practice reading Poe if you find him difficult, because his vocabulary use is very much not what most students are used to. So, moving right along, I'm going to put up my nifty camera and get to work. All right, and we need to make that much bigger, am I correct? Hello. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. So I got this document from Pearson Education. Let's give Pearson some credit as if they're not rich enough. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe was very, very well known, and this is actually one of his most popular stories, and it was made into a movie, but of all his stories, this was the one that got a lot of press and a lot of published reprints of it, because what he's basically doing in this story is he's telling you about a really criminally insane man. But he goes about it in a way where he wants you to keep reading, and he baits you with the language that he's using to keep reading. And he uses a lot of punctuation clues to stop you and make you read things a little bit more succinctly, a little bit more exactly. So this was first published, as it says, in the United States on in August 1843. And I really need a manicure. Look at that. That's embarrassing. This is the life of teachers right before the state exam. We don't have time for things like that, nor the cash, frankly. Okay, so, all right, class, are you with me? Thumbs up if you are. We're right here for the most wild. And is it large enough? I need to know, people. You can see it? Awesome, thank you. Okay, for the most wild yet most homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Mad indeed would I be to expect it, in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. So, we have some words in here that should pop out as descriptive words. We have wild, yet homely. Homely is just very normal. So how can something be wild and homely at the same time? And then he's saying, I neither expect nor solicit belief. So what he's saying is, I don't expect you to believe me. And then he says, mad, meaning insane, indeed, I would be to expect it in any case where my very senses reject their own evidence. He's saying, my very senses, his eyes. And Poe does a lot of things on purpose about eyes, because your eyes symbolize your power. And if you poke an eye out, or you have some kind of eye issue, eye trouble, it's basically you repressing that power. And that's what a lot of people thought that Poe was subliminally saying when he wrote this story. Because, of course, you have to think, why would Poe want to write a story about some deranged man who does something horrific to a black cat? Does anyone wonder why would anyone want to write? Because if you're queasy about anything, this story is so gross, you don't want to keep going with me. You should just pause and say goodbye. But, okay, moving on. So he's saying, I would be crazy, and my own eyes don't even believe, reject their own evidence. There's evidence, my eyes saw it, and still I don't even believe it. Yet mad I am not, and very surely I do not dream. So he's saying, I'm not mad, and I'm not dreaming. But tomorrow I die, and today I would unburden my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plainly, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. So now he's saying, I am about to tell you things that are just a mere household event, but tomorrow I am going to die. That's Hangman. And back then, that's probably how he would have died. I don't know. I'm making that up, but it might be right. I'd have to check my facts, my historical facts. So he's going to die, but everything he's about to tell you is a mere household event. In their consequences, these events have terrified, we know what that means, have tortured, notice the have dash, have destroyed me. Yet I will not attempt to expound them. To me, they have presented little but horror. To many, they will seem less terrible than baroques. And baroques are like bizarre things. Look at the word. It's a bizarre-looking word, and guess what it means? Bizarre. Hereafter, perhaps some intellect may be found which will reduce my phantasm to the commonplace. Now, phantasm means what it sounds like. It's a ghost. There's a little bit of fantasy in every ghost, isn't there? So he's saying that something's bizarre. I'm going to die. But at the same time, he's saying these are just regular household events. And he's saying that, let me get some intellect, more calm, more logical, and far less excitable than my own, which will perceive, in the circumstances I detail with awe, nothing more than an ordinary succession of very natural causes and effects. So he's saying this is a paper about cause and effect, like what this happened, so then that happened. I pulled out of the parking spot too soon. I hit someone with the cart. Oops. Hope they're okay. That's what he's saying that's what's happened with him. And it's just an ordinary day. So, he's going to die. He's terrified. He's tortured. And he's destroyed. I was like putting the oi sound there early. Action and reaction, exactly. Yes, Jonathan, you're right. We did start this in the 9th grade, and now I'm going to go all the way through the story. Can you imagine? And it should make sense. A reread is a fabulous reading tool. Okay, so we have contextual clues everywhere here. We have the repetitive dash haves. We have him separating tomorrow and today. The time is separate. And make no mistake, Poe labored over every word. He was one of those authors who literally would struggle with prepositions. And he was also known to really be pieces of the characters that he wrote about. He was known to be an alcoholic. He was known to have some form of mental illness. So for him to write about it, maybe that's where his struggle is that to him it might be ordinary, and he tries to justify that in some way. Okay, so moving right along, the contextual clues, we have experiential knowledge. What do I know about horrible, terrible things with black cats? So tell me what you know about black cats. What comes to mind when you think of a black cat? Most of you would say bad luck, unless you're like from Egypt. Egyptian cats were thought to be sacred. So if you look at Egyptian hieroglyphics, you'll see the cat is just completely idolized, and they're beautiful paintings and all types of things that honor the black cat. But then you have witches and Halloween, and you have that black cat. And I actually used to have 2 black cats. Now I only have 1. And when you think of a black cat, most people think bad luck. And now you've gone through this first paragraph. So are you thinking this is going to be a happy story? Your tone, your mood, your feeling should be, this is horrible and it's about to get worse. Okay? So, from my infancy, I was noted for the docility and humanity of my disposition. So docility, if someone is docile, that's just like that real sweet, happy puppy doggy. That's what docile is. And humanity is just when you're just really human and big-hearted and you're part of the species and you're good. He's saying he was just, as infancy, meaning in his childhood, when he was smaller, he was known for being just calm and nice, easy, his disposition, right? And when we speak of people, we sometimes speak of them with their dispositions, but for Poe to speak of himself and the narrator to speak of himself and in this way, we have to know, what is he setting us up for? Okay, so you used to be this kid who was calm and very human. My tenderness of heart was even so conspicuous as to make me the jest of my companions. So now he's saying he was bullied, probably, right? So if you're the jest of someone's, if you remember the hat, the jester hat with the little bells, I know that looks like a hand, a bad hand. I'm a terrible drawer, but this is part of my strategy. So a jester is somebody who jokes a lot. So if you're the jest of your companions, meaning he's the joke, he's maybe bullied, he, that kid who was too sweet and all the tough kids thought they'd pick on him for it, that's what he's saying he was. I was especially fond of animals, and I was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. With these, I spent most of my time and never was so happy as when feeding and caressing them. This peculiarity of character grew with my growth, and in my manhood, I derived from it one of my principal sources of pleasure. So he's saying, not only was he a happy, easygoing kid, maybe a little too sweet, he got picked on for it, but he's saying that I loved pets, and that was his biggest source of pleasure. So how do you know somebody who loves pets? Can't find it when I'm looking at it. Hold on. It's like I have double vision. Hold on. Principal sources of pleasure. Oh my gosh, she found it. Hooray. Okay. So if this is his principal source of pleasure, when you're little and you play, you just want to do what you want to do. And so he wants to be with the animals. To those who have cherished an affection for a faithful and sagacious dog, I need hardly be at the trouble of explaining the nature of the intensity of the gratification thus derivable. Long sentence. Some of his sentences are super short. This one's 3 lines long. He does it on purpose. That's called sentence variety, and you need to do that when you're writing as well. Don't make every sentence the same style. Juggle things around. Make some sentences really long, then make some really short. And that's what Poe is so good at, is he can go from the 3-line sentence to 1 word and make his point. So what he's saying is that if you've ever known a dog, sagacious is wise. Think of like the witch's hat, right? The wizard. See my wizard's hat on top of the word sagacious? Sagacious dogs are wise dogs, and we've all known that dog that just knew better than people, not just fake, fictitious Benji dogs, but, the real-life dog that just was a really faithful, good dog. And he's saying he doesn't need to explain to you this whole thing here, at the trouble of explaining the nature of the intensity of the gratification thus derivable. Basically, he's saying, I don't need to tell you, because you already know, what a great feeling it is to have a dog that faithful and that wise. There is something in the unselfish and self-sacrificing love of a brute which goes directly to the heart of him who has had frequent occasion to test the paltry friendship and gossamer fidelity of mere man. And notice this is italics, this is capitalized, and he's got just latent with tough words. Paltry, when you think of paltry, I think this kid do a card once, and he just did a big Oscar the Grouch. You guys remember who Oscar, I don't care how old you are, you know who Oscar the Grouch is, correct? Him and his trash can. Ironically, my black cat is clawing to get in here. Okay, so paltry is poor, shabby. So he's saying that friendship is shabby and flimsy. And gossamer is something that's very flimsy is gossamer. So it might be used in a way like to talk about a gossamer beautiful gown, or it could be he's saying fidelity. Fidelity is faithfulness, and if you're faithful, then he's saying that's what we would aspire to be. But he's saying gossamer fidelity, well, flimsy faithfulness. So he's saying shabby friendships, and I would just write these things right on top. Shabby friendships and flimsy faith. Fidelity's faith. And I have the worst handwriting if you didn't know, if I'm not trying. And when you capitalize something in the middle of a sentence, it's a proper noun or it's a holy word. So he's putting the capital on man. And he's in if you're looking at this in the an advanced analytic way, he is making fun of man for saying that they're not that their friendships aren't shabby and that their faithfulness isn't flimsy, but he's flipping it on you. And he goes on in the next paragraph to say, I married early, and I was happy to find in my wife a disposition not uncongenial with my own. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, fish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. And herein comes the black cat. So not only is he this sweet, sweet kid up in this paragraph who loves pets, but he also married early. So that says a lot about a man. We won't go into those details, and it could be good things, could be bad things, but he wanted a marriage early on, and he wanted lots of pets. Okay, so checking to see everyone's still here and giving a time check. I am going to pause for a second. All right, coming full circle, we've looked a little bit at Poe's Black Cat story, and what you really should do, and this is above and beyond anything that has to do with regular schoolwork for anyone who's here, just visiting, seeing what this is all about. This would be in addition to what you normally do for your regular day. But you go through Poe's story, print up these vocabulary words. See, I find it a waste of time for students, for me, to not just give. I don't like, giving kids, go look up the definition of, like, what am I teaching? What are you learning? How to look up the definition and how to write it down. Like, so what? You follow me? Like, we did that when we were little kids, right? But by now, you're all in high school. I'm giving you the definitions. I'm giving you them in the order that they come in the story. So it'd be wise of you, if you want to improve your vocabulary, to go through and print this up and go through the story and plug in the words that you don't know as you read and see if it helps you build the meaning of the story. And I'm going to continue reading the story, and I'm not going to keep everyone in class for that, but I'll put this video back to back with to keep the story in order. But it takes a long time to learn how to use contextual clues, and you need to be diving into literature and texts like you never have. And the way that I just did that with the story, I would have done that in class every day for months and months and months and months. We underline. It's called selective underlining. And notice, if you look throughout the document, when a teacher says highlight the important things, and then you go back and you look at the paragraph and the whole thing is highlighted? And then when you look at the page and the whole thing's highlighted, what's important. Knowing what's important, to pick out what's important in a text, is not an easy task. And students, you have to be taught how to do that a lot of times. And so I always say, paragraphs about this long, you shouldn't have more than 10 words highlighted or underlined. And, we don't always have a highlighter handy, so I just underline. I don't like for kids to have a bunch of fancy things when they're reading. You need your brain, you need a pen. And I like when you write on a text and draw pictures and make comparisons and, what is coming to your mind. This is a strategy in itself. And, but my focus for today is really the context of what you're reading is going to give so much depth to your vocabulary usage. And the more you read, the more you know. You never know what this lovely test the state exam is going to bring, but if you know that you can delve into any text and know how to tackle it and know, what am I supposed to be getting out of this piece right now? What am I looking for? What meaning am I supposed to understand by the time I'm done here? then you're going to be successful on any test in any class, because it's all about making meaning. And if you are reading and it's not making sense, you're in the right place, but you need to go back to my website and you need to any video that's already up and running, go ahead and watch it, because that's all I'm ever going to talk about is how do we make meaning of any kind of text, whether it be a bill that I got the other day from a trademark company that I, for a second, thought was real, and I was, how am I going to pay $750 for what? And then I looked at it a little bit more closely, and I said, oh, this is advertising, but it looks so real, and I could totally see some person thinking it was real and paying it. And I know that stuff happens all the time. So for me, it's not just, I'm not just here preparing you for some state exam. It's about a discussion of the language that we speak. And the more you delve into the different types of writing and authors and different types of texts, the more practice you have with that, the more success you'll have when you dive into any text for any class. So that's it for now. I'll pick up in this ladder next time I read. And that's it. Thank you so much, those of you from my real life school who came to class today. I appreciate it.